Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So as you all know, I've been kind of posting some of my podcasts and things like that, and I'm going to kind of go into some more commentary things as well. And this, my dear friends, is something that we are going to talk about. And honestly, it's because I've went from doing a lot of anti-MLM commentary and things like that, which I'm still going to do, but I'm also going to be talking about a lot of Christian-based things because that my podcast is based around my Christian faith and things like that. So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about several things because I know that it doesn't only just affect it affects everybody. It doesn't just affect one person or one religion or one type of person and so on and so forth. So we are going to talk about this because I remember this vaguely back in 2015 when this happened, and a lot of people were like, why was this guy not allowed to do this, and so on and so forth. So basically the backstory, which we're going to watch some news videos as well, and I'm going to record the news update. I'm going to use more news resources other than just Fox News because I wanted to include other people's viewpoints on this and why they think the way they do and that kind of thing. Not to just out and say everybody's wrong, but to just kind of talk about the differing opinions on this subject matter. So basically, the Supreme Court ruled today for the coach whose prayers on the field raised church-to-state questions, and he was ultimately fired back in 2015, which I have my notes here, and I wanted to look at them a second. But he would go out after each game and pray at the 50-yard line. He drew crowds and kind of made a controversy, that kind of thing. And some of the videos that you'll see that we're talking about, and I show on here, it talks about how some of the parents were concerned that maybe their sons and things like that played on the team wouldn't get the same amount of play time as somebody who joined Mr. Kennedy on the field and prayed afterwards, which totally isn't the case. Like, you can't feasibly determine somebody's play time in a football game due to them praying on the field with you. I mean, that is totally 100% wrong and should never, ever, ever be someone's determination on their playtime. So, I mean, I don't understand why anybody would think that their son's not going out and praying with the assistant coach would determine whether or not that they got to play. But, okay. This guy stood up for his beliefs, and it shows, even if it was 7 years later, he stood up for his beliefs and won. He may not have won in the beginning, but he kept pushing, he kept going, he kept doing things, and that's amazing. That is a win for not only Christians and their beliefs, but any other religion out there as well. But so the Supreme Court ruled Monday for a former high school football coach whose prayers at the 50-yard line drew crowds and controversy, declaring his public prayers were protected as free speech. The 6-3 decision is a symbolic victory for those who seek a larger role for prayers and religion in public schools. The court stressed that Coach Joe Kennedy's prayers began as private and personal expression and were not official acts of promoting religion at school. Writing for the majority, Justice Neil M. Gorsuch said both the free exercise and free speech clause of the First Amendment protect the expressions like Mr. Kennedy's, and nor does a proper understanding of the amendment's establishment clause require the government to single out private religious speech for special disfavor. The Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression for religious and non-religious views alike. So they were basically saying, everybody's views together. Like they were saying, hey, there you go. The court's 3 liberals dissented, which I don't think I would have worded like that. I'd have just said the 3 that didn't agree, but whatever. This case is about whether a public school must permit a school official to kneel, bow his head, and say a prayer at the center of the school event. The Constitution does not authorize, let alone require, public schools to embrace this conduct, said Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Since 1962, this court consistently has recognized that school officials leading prayer is constitutionally impermissible. Official-led prayer strikes at the core of constitutional protections for religious liberty of students and their parents, as embodied both the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment, Sotomayor said. That began with the coach kneeling by himself at the 50-yard line, became a highly publicized event in 2015 that drew a crowd of players and spectators onto the field at the end of games. Kennedy was an assistant coach on a yearly contract at Bremerton High School. I'm sorry if I botched that up. In Washington, when he began to pray at the end of games, school officials warned him against continuing the prayers because they had become a public event. They said that prayers at schools could be seen as violating the Constitution ban on the establishment of religion. So basically, he took his case to local media. He was suspended when he refused to follow district's guidance, and he was not rehired for the next year. With the help of Texas-based First Liberty Institute, he filed a suit against the school district contesting his dismissal. The First Amendment protects the freedom of speech and free exercise of religion while prohibiting an establishment of religion. And all three other clauses were at the issue. In the case of Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, the High Court said the key issue was whether the coach's prayer was private and personal or whether instead he was speaking as a public employee at the school. It seems clear to us that Mr. Kennedy has demonstrated that his speech was private speech, not government speech. Gorsuch wrote, when Mr. Kennedy uttered the three prayers that resulted in his suspension, he was not engaged in speech ordinarily within the scope of his duties as a coach. He did not speak pursuant to government policy. He was not seeking to convey a government-created message. Simply put, Mr. Kennedy's prayers did not owe their existence to Mr. Kennedy's responsibilities as a public employee. In the past, the court had ruled that government employees are not as protected as whistleblowers if they speak or reveal confidential matters that were a part of their job. But in Monday's opinion, the coach was not acting as a government employee when he prayed on the field, which obviously, how would he be a government employee? The decision overturns a ruling of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which agreed with the school district that allowing his public prayers could violate the ban on establishment of religion. Kennedy spoke as a public employee when he kneeled and prayed on the 50-yard line immediately after games while in view of students and parents, said Judge Milon Smith. For the Ninth Circuit, he noted that judges have said schools may regulate or restrict what public employees say on the job, even while they are free to speak as they wish on their own time. Need to speak out about some of these things because these things are crazy. There's crazy stuff going on. God, why is this going on? Asking him, why is all this happening? Why are we having these issues, God? And that kind of thing. So we're going to go into a few videos covering from the past and also covering from today as well. We're going to see a couple newer things. So yeah, get ready for that. Alright, so here is the first video. This one was actually back from when this happened. So we're going to play that one.
Federal Appeals Court ruling it is unconstitutional for a high school football coach to pray on the field alone or with players after the games. Coach Joe Kennedy from Washington State lost his job back in 2015. School officials had warned him to stop praying, but he continued to take a knee and pray after games. The judges said he was acting as a public employee, not a private citizen, while he was praying. Therefore, his free speech rights were not protected. But Kennedy says he's not going down without a fight in court.
We need to fight for our freedoms. We need to fight for the things that are right in society and for America. I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I just gave up because this got tough, if this was an inconvenience. I wanted to be that example for him, and it ultimately cost me everything.
Coach Joe Kennedy joins us now live, along with President and CEO of the law firm representing him, Kelly Shackelford. That group is First Liberty Institute. Good to have you both with us today.
Good to be here.
All right, Coach, I know that you were suspended at one point, and you were told you could keep praying, then there was an accommodation you could pray, but only after everybody had left. Why was it important to you to pray when you did the way that you did?
Well, when I first started out with, even before the coaching job, I made a covenant with God that I was going to give him the glory and just say a quick prayer, thanks for what those young men just did. And it was on the battlefield. That's where it was actually done. So it seemed appropriate and right to do, the prayer right where those guys fought for 48 minutes.
Well, and Kelly, ultimately they said he was speaking as a public employee, even though you all would argue as a private citizen doing that. From part of the Ninth Circuit's decision that came out this week, they said Kennedy spoke at a school event on school property wearing BHS logoed attire, that's the high school, while on duty as a supervisor and in the most prominent position on the field where he knew it was inevitable that students, parents, fans, and occasionally the media would observe his behavior. And they said, no can do.
Yeah, let's be clear. I want to make sure everybody's clear about what he did. He went by himself to the center of the field, took a knee for 15 to 30 seconds, and said a silent prayer. That was the act he was fired for. And the ruling that you're citing said that a coach may not pray in public if anyone from the public can see them. And Shannon, think of what that means. That would mean that a teacher couldn't bow their head over the meal in the lunch cafeteria. A Jewish teacher couldn't wear a yarmulke. You couldn't wear a cross. That is an incredibly extreme ruling that whenever anyone is, quote, on duty or wearing, a logo from the school, that they can't be a person of faith. That's not the law and not the Constitution. And what they did to Coach Kennedy is wrong.
Well, they also went on to, it felt like sort of Friday Night Lights, this thing where they talked about gathering on Friday nights for the games and what a big thing it is. But they said people are left out if Coach Kennedy does what he does. Here's what they said. We recognize the important role that public worship plays in many communities, as well as the sincere desire to include public prayer as a part of these occasions, like the football games. Such activity can promote disunity along religious lines and risks alienated valued community members from an environment that must be open and welcoming to all. Coach, what reaction did you get from people for and against you in doing this?
Well, that's the most amazing thing. Being a coach for that long in Bremerton, I really got to know all the kids, the families, the parents, the grandparents. We were a team. It wasn't just the players. It wasn't just football. And we had open conversations about these things. I had kids that said, hey, Coach, I don't believe in prayer. Is that a problem? Of course it's not a problem. Me telling them they had to come pray is just as bad as them telling me I can't pray. So that was never an issue. If the kids wanted to come out, they did. If they didn't, they didn't. These are smart kids, and, they don't feel left out of anything. They were part of our team, and I was just honored to serve them.
Well, Kelly, I noted that in the decision, even the Ninth Circuit noted that the school district said he never intentionally tried to persuade anybody to come pray with him or to have influence on them, but they also referred to these kids as being impressionable and captive because they would look up to their coach. So where do you go from here? Are you considering the Supreme Court?
Yeah, we've got a number of options. Obviously, we can go what's called en banc to the larger Ninth Circuit. We can go to the Supreme Court. We're certainly not going to stop. This decision is a very dangerous decision that affects millions of people. If it's almost like prayer is the new pornography. If you pray, this is what they said, if you pray and people see you from the public, from the general public, that's a violation. That's not the law. So I would encourage people, if they want to look at this for themselves, they can go to firstliberty.org. They can look at the briefs. They can look at the opinions. They can follow Coach Kennedy. We're going to keep fighting this till the Constitution is restored for millions of Americans.
Well, and if people have, no matter what religious practice they have, if that's of concern to them, it doesn't matter which one is targeted in any specific opinion, it would apply to everyone. So keep us updated. I'll watch for this at the Supreme Court. Thank you both.
But I want to touch on the fact that he literally said, Coach Kennedy literally said, I wasn't forcing these kids to come and pray. I was not forcing anyone to do what I was doing. I was going and doing this myself privately, and then people started coming, and if they asked to join, I said that they could. I did not pressure them. Like, basically what he was saying was I did not pressure anyone to come and to pray with me. And if people want to join them, even if they are students, they should have that right to do so. They should have that right to come into community with somebody else that is of the same religion, and so on and so forth. Like, that's my biggest thing. And another thing is the fact that when I was looking back and I was kind of rewatching this video and that kind of thing, when his lawyer talks about how this is a very dangerous decision, not only just for Christianity, but for other religions, he's not lying. Like I said previously in the video, this doesn't just affect Christians openly worshiping. Like, it affects other religions, Muslims, Jewish people, Hindus, any organized religion, this is going to affect. And it is a dangerous decision because a lot of things are covered under the First Amendment, and the freedom of speech and the freedom to basically be your own person and to go out and pray and not be stoned. There's people who don't think that. So my biggest thing is, this was back after that first ruling, before they actually took it to the Supreme Court and that kind of thing, and we're going to kind of get into that here in a second. And I also want to touch base on, like, it leaving an impression on the youth and that kind of thing. In my opinion, if these youths have the same religious background, the same religious beliefs as this coach, I do not see how it is harmful for these students to get be impressionalized by what the coach is doing. Like, this isn't a bad thing. Praying has never been a bad thing. And praying publicly should not be considered a bad thing either. I 100% believe that, and you will not change my mind on that. Because who is going to be out there hurting anyone by going out and praying in public? No one. No one is hurting anybody by praying in public. If you don't like it, walk away. We as Christians walk away from a lot of things that we see that we don't 100% agree with, especially in the past several years. I mean, even in the past, Christians have done that as well. But in the past several years, with multiple things and events going on, we walk away from a lot of things to save face, basically, and to continue on, even though we believe it's wrong. And I honestly and wholeheartedly believe that we should stand up for the things that we believe in. We should talk about a lot of the things that we believe in peacefully, not in a violence-inducing way, but I believe that we should stand up for ourselves in a peaceful way, that we should talk about our feelings and our opinions and why we think that this is right or this is wrong peacefully with others, and have actual conversations, not arguments, not fights, not physical fights. We need to be able to have conversations peacefully and to talk about things without having to worry that we ultimately in the end could get hurt. And it has happened the opposite way as well. There are some Christians who resort to physical violence and things like that, and that is 100% wrong, and I don't claim them. Alright, so this one is actually from ABC News, which usually doesn't line up with Fox News, so I wanted to play this one for you guys as well, to show you all that I don't just listen to Fox News and just want to use them as a reputable source. I'm actually using, like, multiple different news sources and videos and things like that to show you all that I'm just not aligning with one news station. Whatever. Anyways, this one, it says the Scoutest to hear case of high school coach suspended. So this one is a little bit newer, and by a little bit newer, I mean like during the panorama, or as you all know, at 2020. The C-19. If I need to say any more, I'm not, because I'm not getting this video taken down. If it gets taken down, it'll probably be because of my opinions. So let's start this.
Where justices will hear arguments today in a case with major implications for the role of religion in public life. A high school football coach who was suspended for praying on the field after games is asking the justices to affirm his right to lead those prayers. Terry Moran reports from the Supreme Court. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, George. For more than half a century, one of the most controversial topics in constitutional law has been determining the place of religion in public school settings. So now this high school football coach from Washington State has brought a case that raises a question: are his prayers at the 50-yard line private acts of faith or government indoctrination? This morning at the Supreme Court, faith and the First Amendment are on the docket.
I just want to be able to practice my faith after a football game.
Joe Kennedy was an assistant coach at Bremerton High School near Seattle, and in 2008, he started praying by himself at midfield after games.
Nobody should have to be fired or worried about their job if they show any signs of faith.
Soon, players were joining him, and the school district had a problem. For the school district, Joe Kennedy was crossing a constitutional line. As a coach and a public employee, his act of faith could be seen as an endorsement by the district of a religion. And so officials told him he could no longer pray with his players if he wanted to keep. Some parents said their sons felt pressured to pray with Kennedy, but others supported him.
So if you felt pressured to pray with him, you shouldn't have. Like, if that doesn't line up with your beliefs, I mean, I know these are high school students and they are, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't understand or know their way currently yet. But if you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it, especially when it comes to religion and things like that. Like us as Christians, if we don't want to say a prayer from a different religion, we don't have to. We can stay silent. Just like another religion doesn't have to come in and say a prayer with us. That like, come on. What are you people teaching people? Like, what are you all teaching right now? Like, if you do, no means no. You don't have to do it, and you don't have to feel pressure to do these things, because so far from the evidence that I've seen, he wasn't pressuring anybody. He was just going out and doing this for himself, and there were students and people that felt the need to go out and to pray as well. And if they wanted to do that, that is their own personal ideology and the fact that that was their own action that they chose to do. Nobody was pushing you to go pray if you don't believe in God that he is praying to. That's no.
Point where they said, if you were being able to be seen anywhere on the football field in prayer, then we're going to have to suspend you, and ultimately it ended my career.
And we shouldn't have to feel the need to be in hiding and praying to God. We should be able to feel comfortable and feel safe in the fact that we can go and pray wherever we want without being stone shunned, like fear our safety in this. We should not. Like, we should never, ever, ever have to feel unsafe in practicing our religion. Nobody should, no matter if you're a Christian or not.
Courts, following long-standing precedent, sided with the school district, but now it's in the hands of the Supreme Court, with a decision that could have major implications for public schools around the country.
This case is going to answer how far teachers retain their constitutional rights. Do they maintain them in the school, in the cafeteria, out here on the football field? That's what we've got to have clarity.
Since he lost his job, Coach Kennedy has moved to Florida, but he says he'll be on the first plane back to Washington if he wins this case.
And Terry, the current lineup on the court likely favorable for the coach?
Oh, no question, George. For years, these cases resulted in sharply divided opinions by the court. But the court has changed, as you point out, and the conservative supermajority has proven itself very friendly to plaintiffs like Coach Kennedy.
Terry Moran, thanks.
All right, so here I come back with more opinions. But I really want to talk about the fact that, wow. It really hits me that I, as a Christian, as time continues to go on, the less and less rights that we seem to have. I'm worried for the direction of our country just because of things like this. And, I kind of always have been growing up, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that, wow, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know of. And in my opinion, which I'm going to say in my opinion a lot, because a lot of people are like, that's him, right? Okay, well, it might not be right to you, but this is my opinion. Okay? The church and state separation that they talk about a lot when it comes to issues like this and events like this that happen, The church separation from the state was to keep the government out of the church, so that the church could do what they needed to do, be able to preach it the way they wanted to preach, the church can have their own doctrination that the state and the federal government could not come into, that they could not, what they can and can't do when the church has their own laws, because if the government interferes with the church, then the church loses those types of laws, loses those types of privileges, loses the ability to teach the doctrine that they teach, and to be able to freely speak about the Bible, the things in the Bible, and to do the things that the church does. That, to me, is why there was this separation of church and state. But I will do another video where I kind of dive into that ruling and speak about that a little bit more to let you all know if my opinion is truly correct or not. But in my opinion, the church separation from the state was to keep the government out of the church affairs, so that the government couldn't rule what in the church that we could say. Because if the government got into what we could say in the church, then they could put out false doctrination and things like that, which would ante up people speaking falsely from the Bible and being blasphemous. If I could talk today. But anyways, we're going to go on to the next video, and this was actually from today.
Decisions today. We have one that has just been released. Shannon Bream is joining us. This is the case of Kennedy versus Bremerton School District. It has to do with religion in schools, prayer. Can you say a prayer by yourself on the field? And as I understand it, Shannon, the ruling was 6-3. Tell us more.
It is, and this is written by Justice Gorsuch, deciding in favor of the coach. Let me read a little bit from what they said. And remember, the coach was going to pray on the football field after the games, initially by himself. There were students who joined. There were other schools that decided, we want to join. Can we come with you as well? Eventually, it turned into a situation where there were some complaints that apparently some parents worried that kids would feel compelled, like their playing time would depend on being out there and being with the coach.
And as I said previously, that should not have even been a thought. Like, why would this coach show favoritism to the kids that are coming out to pray with him? And them willingly choosing on their own to go do that. Like, the fact that you come out and pray is not... It has nothing to do with how you can play on the field. You were just trying to seek a reason to make him stop. And that I wholeheartedly believe that. I 100% believe that. They were not 100% worried about their kids not getting playtime. They were worried about him continuing to pray, that it was irritating their spirits as well as the fact it was enraging them, because this coach was allowed to express his freedom as an American citizen to pray wherever and whenever he wanted to. I don't care if you are a public figure, public teacher, public anything. You are allowed to practice your faith. We have the freedoms in America to be of whatever religion we want to be and to pray however we want to pray.
They pushed back, and then the school district told him he had to stop doing it, or they would give him another place to pray, but he couldn't do that public place. Well, today, 6-3, the Supreme Court says that his religion doesn't have to go into hiding because he is a public employee. It says respect for religious expressions is indispensable to life in a free and diverse republic, whether those expressions take place in a sanctuary or on a field, and whether they manifest through the spoken word or a bowed head. Here, a government entity sought to punish an individual for engaging in a brief, quiet, personal religious observance doubly protected by the free exercise and free speech clauses of the First Amendment. Goes on to say the only meaningful justification the government offered for its reprisal rested on a mistaken view that it had a duty to ferret out and suppress religious observances, even as it allows comparable secular speech. The Constitution neither mandates nor tolerates that kind of discrimination. They say Mr. Kennedy Kennedy is entitled to summary judgment on his First Amendment claims. The judgment of the Court of Appeals is reversed. This is a 6-3 win for this coach. It is split along ideological lines, as you would expect. The dissent is Justices Breyer, Kagan, and Sotomayor, written by Justice Sotomayor. Here's a little bit of what the dissent says. She says, today's decision is particularly misguided because it elevates the religious rights of a school official who voluntarily accepted public employment and the limits that public employment entails over those of his students who are required to attend school and who this court has long recognized are particularly vulnerable and deserving of protection. They say the court sets us on a perilous path.
Why would you need to protect children from prayer? I could see protecting them from gun violence, protecting them from... How is prayer physically harming these students? If they have been brought up right, no means no. You don't want to do something, you don't have to do it. And this coach was not forcing anyone to come up into his private prayer time that he was having on the field. So I don't understand your opinion other than you just don't want people to pray. Like, I just feel like that is the majority opinion here, is like, I don't want you to pray because you're a Christian and you're not allowed to do blah 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 blah. That's how I feel, and I'm going to get spicy about it.
And forcing states to entangle themselves with religion with all our rights hanging in the balance. So the split you would expect.
And our rights are not hanging in the balance. The right to a religious freedom has always been there. You limit those rights when you don't allow people to practice their religion freely. I could see if they were physically harming someone. They are not physically harming someone. His prayer on the field did not physically harm anyone. Thank you.
Ideological lines on this, but the coach has been waging this legal battle for years and years and years. It's been to the court and been back, and now finally he's got a decision on the merits 6-3 in his favor. Dana?
I feel like this has been a great win, not only for us, but for others. And it particularly pertains to my religious viewpoints and beliefs, which is the biggest reason that I am commentating on it, talking about it, and trying to even be open-minded about the other side's opinions, even though that last comment wasn't so open-minded. But that is just how I feel. That's how I'm feeling. And I just want people to realize that, hey, yeah, that we need to focus on and realize the things that are going on right now, our freedoms-wise, that are being taken away. So the biggest thing is, which, sorry for the extra noise, everything was publicized in 2015, and it took 7 years for it to finally to reach a ruling here. Well, it didn't technically take the 7 years for the court to rule, but it took 7 years to get up to this point where the Supreme Court did rule and is talking about this issue. So he was literally warned, and then he was therefore suspended / not rehired again, aka technically fired. But he took the case. He did take the case to the media because he was standing up for his beliefs, and I believe as a Christian, and I mean just a human being in general, we should stand up for our beliefs. As I said, peacefully. We shouldn't bring violence into this because that is stupid. And they started as a private and personal expression, not an act of promoting religion at the school, but it was a private and personal expression. And if those kind of rights are taken away, then how are we as Christians or any other religion going to be able to feel safe and free to practice our religion, especially prayer, wherever we want to, when it states in the Constitution that we have the freedom of religion? So some of the scriptures that I saw and I thought kind of lined up with this was in Matthew. The first one's in Matthew 10:33. It says, "But so whoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven." So, and obviously Jesus was speaking in this and talking about if they deny me before men, then also be denied before my Father which is in heaven. And this man did not deny his faith and his religion and God or anything like that. He did not deny it. He continued to do what he was doing as a faithful Christian, and I believe that that is great, that we need to hear more about these faithful Christians that are not denying God in the face of danger, in the face of being disagreed upon or hated or cast out or anything like that. And I think that is amazing. Like, I really do. I feel like that is amazing that this man stood up for his beliefs. He did not deny his faith or deny his God or Jesus or anything like that. And he continued to do what he was doing because it was his belief that he could publicly do this. And it is truly a freedom in the United States for us to be able to pray and practice our religions as we see fit. You know, as long as we're not hurting anybody or killing anybody. The second Bible verse is from some people say Titus and some say Titus, whichever one you want to say. But it's chapter 1, verse 16. They profess that they know God, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. And the reason I also decided that this Bible verse was like a good verse to include in this video was because there are a lot of people who say they believe in God and that they know God. But when it comes to a situation like this, they deny him, which makes them abominable and disobedient and that kind of thing. And it shows that they are truly not a true Christian in this kind of face of adversary and like being made known that, oh, well, they think this. I mean, that is just terrible. Why would they say that? We need to cancel them. They're ridiculous. This is just stupid. You know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, we hear it all the time. We know that. And then Luke chapter 18, verse 1, it says, and he spake a parable unto them to this end, that we may always pray and not faint or lose heart. And so I really like this one because that we should always pray and not lose our heart no matter what is in front of us until the bitter end. And I just truly love that. So if you have any like comments, questions, viewpoints on the Supreme Court ruling, leave them in the comments below. Please remember to be kind and not be rude and hateful. We are having discussions in my comment sections. If you therefore decide to be rude and hateful and start bullying others, no matter which side you're on, whether you're for or against this, your comment will be deleted.